In this video, I'll provide an extensive overview of the competitive Pokemon TCG metagame as of October 2023. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Luke, and I love talking about the Pokemon trading card game. Playing the Pokemon TCG competitively can be exciting and really rewarding, but all of the information can be a bit overwhelming, especially if you're fresh to the tournament scene. So the goal of this video is to briefly explain every deck that you might come up against at tournaments, events, or even online, and even some of the lesser popular decks, just so you're not surprised by them. In addition, I will provide successful deck lists, overall strategies of decks, and reasons to play or not to play decks. At the end of the video, I will highlight the easiest decks to pick up and play to success, as well as popular tech cards you might want to include in your deck, or even tech cards to watch out from your opponents. If you enjoyed today's video, remember to subscribe for more Pokemon TCG content. If you'd like to support my channel, you can do so by using code CELIO5 at pokecollect.com for a wide selection of sealed products, pre-orders for new releases, and unique mystery box items. Using code CELIO at potownstore.com when shopping for Pokemon TCG Live code cards, or use my affiliate links for Dragon Shield sleeves, my favorite sleeves to use, and Into the AM apparel for passionate and unique clothing. Also, check out PokemonCard.io for deck building, community forums, and news. If you'd like to support further, you can become a Metafy member using my link, which will directly support me and unlock video and article content, and I also offer Pokemon TCG coaching through Metafy. Coupon codes and affiliate links are in the description down below. We have a lot to cover today, so let's begin. The Lost Zone archetype sends cards to the Lost Zone with Comfey's Flower Selecting ability and the supporter card Colorless Experiment to unlock powerful effects, like Cramorant's Lost Provisions ability or Sableye's Lost Mine attack. Lost Zone decks are currently some of the strongest and most popular decks in the field, but they can be complicated to play due to presenting more decisions for the player compared to most other decks. Lost Zone decks can adapt to overcome most matchups, which makes this archetype very enticing for experienced players. The most popular Lost Zone deck is Turbo Lost Zone Box, which aims to quickly fill up the Lost Zone with the help of Lost Vacuum, which isn't as common in other Lost Zone variants. This Lost Zone variant can frequently reach 7 cards in the Lost Zone on turn 1, activating Mirage Gate to power up Pokemon like Dragonite V or Radiant Greninja. Lost Zone Kyogre is very similar to Turbo Lost Zone, except it includes energy recyclers, more basic energy cards, and most importantly, Kyogre. Kyogre is a late game threat that can take the majority of your prize cards on the final turn of the game. Players aim to deck themselves out and then fill the deck back up with energy recyclers before announcing Aqua Storm to wash away the opponent's benched Pokemon. Other than the additional strategy of Kyogre to close out games, this deck plays very similar to Turbo Lost Zone Box. Next is Giratina VSTAR Lost Zone Box. This variant shares the Lost Zone core with the others, but includes a 3/3 line of Giratina VSTAR, which drastically changes the lines of play possible for the deck. Giratina V has the Lost Abyss attack, which is something none of the other Lost Zone variants have available. Giratina VSTAR is an incredible attacker against other VSTAR Pokemon and even VMAX Pokemon due to its Star Requiem attack, which instantly KOs the defending Pokemon. Lost Zone Sablezard omits the toolbox approach of having several different tech attackers and focuses on using Cramorant, Sableye, and Radiant Charizard in most matchups. This Lost Zone variant is much less popular than the others, but is more streamlined to do the same things game after game. Lastly, we have Hisuian Goodra VSTAR Lost Zone Box, which is a less than popular rogue deck now, but still pops up from time to time and uses the Lost Zone core of Comfey, Colorless, and Mirage Gate. Goodra VSTAR has unique qualities with its Rolling Iron attack that mitigates 80 damage dealt to it next turn, and the Moisture Star VSTAR Power ability, which fully heals Goodra VSTAR. Turbo Lost Zone Box is the most popular and most widely successful variant of Lost Zone Box. However, Lost Zone Kyogre won the recent regional championships in Pittsburgh on September 9th. Turbo Lost Zone Kyogre, and Giratina VSTAR Lost Zone are amongst some of the best decks in standard format. The Sword and Shield expansion's Battle Styles and Fusion Strike introduced new archetypal cards: Rapid Strike, Single Strike, and Fusion Strike. Amazingly, all three of these battle styles are constants in the metagame over 2 years later. Each of the styles have a top-tier archetype in standard format: Rapid Strike Inteleon Urshifu, Single Strike Lugia, and Fusion Strike Mew VMAX. Rapid Strike Inteleon Urshifu is a tactical deck with low damage output. It makes up for its small attacks with incredible opportunities for knocking out multiple Pokemon at once, with Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX's G-Max Rapid Flow, Inteleon VMAX's Double Gunner ability, and Radiant Alakazam's Painful Spoons ability. Even more impressive is that this is the only meta deck that can take an extra turn, with the unique effect of Medicham V's Yoga Loop, which allows you to take an extra turn if Yoga Loop knocks out a Pokemon. Rapid Strike Inteleon Urshifu is very good against Lost Zone decks in addition to some of the other popular decks, but struggles against Single Strike and Fusion Strike. Single Strike Lugia is a straightforward deck that accelerates special energies and deals big damage. Lugia VSTAR Summoning Star ability puts 2 Archeops onto the board from the discard pile, and then Archeops powers up your attackers for the rest of the game. Although Lugia and Archeops are not Single Strike Pokemon themselves, the best partners for them are Single Strike Pokemon, like Tyranitar V, Stonejourner, and Yveltal. These Pokemon use the powerful Single Strike energies, which increase their damage output by 20 damage, and Archeops can directly attach these energies from the deck to your Single Strike Pokemon. The Single Strike Lugia deck is very powerful, but heavily relies on a smooth start. Its losses are often to itself, so to speak, in the event of no Lugia V on turn 1, or not getting 2 Archeops into the discard pile for turn 2. Lesser popular and completely off topic from the battle styles is Colorless Lugia VSTAR. Colorless Lugia VSTAR uses Snorlax and Lugia as main attackers, as well as the alternate attackers Weirder V, Drapion V, and now the new Mew EX from Scarlet and Violet 151. Other than the different energies and different attackers, the overall function of this variant is similar to that of Single Strike Lugia. And back to the battle styles, the final one is Fusion Strike. Mew VMAX and Genesect V have been a dastardly duo since their release, and the archetype shows no signs of slowing down, having won the World Championships in the Masters Division in 2023, and placing top 8 at the largest regionals ever at Pittsburgh Regionals in September 2023. There are 2 variants of Mew VMAX decks, with or without Fusion Strike energies. The Fusion Strike Energy variant is more popular and more successful currently, using Alessa's Sparkle to attach Fusion Strike energies to your Pokemon. Single prize attackers Meloetta and Deoxys benefit from Fusion Strike energies and offer you more attackers than just Mew VMAX. The other variant, DTE, or Double Turbo Energy Mew, uses Mew VMAX as the only attacker in favor of more disruption options in the deck, such as additional Path to the Peak, Judge, and Iono. Mew VMAX decks are sometimes scared out of the metagame by harsh counters such as Drapion V and Spirit Tomb, but even through being directly countered, the archetype still finds success. Charizard EX released in Obsidian Flames and had an underwhelming debut at Pittsburgh Regionals. However, Charizard EX decks took up 5 of the top 8 spots at a recent Brazilian Regional Championships, putting the archetype on the map. Charizard EX has high HP, accelerates energy, and has a strong attack. If the card has any real shortcomings, it's just that Charizard EX is a Stage 2 Pokemon, which you'll need rare candy for most of the time. Charizard Pidgeot was the mainstream Charizard EX variant upon release, and all 5 of the Charizard decks in top 8 at Curitiba Regionals were this variant. 6th place Dalton Achetta's decklist used Arceus VSTAR for its Starbirth ability and sometimes for its attack Trinity Nova, while 1st place William Azevedo's decklist omitted Arceus VSTAR in favor of Entei V, Lumineon V, and Forest Seal Stones. Charizard EX Pidgeot EX definitely garnered more respect after Curitiba Regionals, and the next couple events will be a testament to this deck's longevity in the metagame. Charizard Gallade uses Kirlia, Gallade, and Celebration's Mew as the deck's engine. Mew plus Jet Energy is a unique combination for the early turns, bringing Mew into the active as well as paying for its retreat cost if needed. Different support Pokemon, but the aim is still to set up multiple Charizard EXs to overwhelm your opponent with high HP and high damage output. Last is Charizard Lost Zone, which could have also been included in the Lost Zone section all the same. This uses the Lost Zone core, but makes room for 3 Charmander, 3 Charizard EX, 3 Rare Candy, and 5 Fire Energy. In a perfect world, I think this deck would be the ultimate combination of Charizard EX and a Lost Zone toolbox, but in practice it proves to be less consistent than other Charizard variants. Arceus VSTAR decks vary greatly from one to the next, since Arceus VSTAR is a colorless support Pokemon as well as a good attacker. The commonality between variants is being built to achieve turn 2 Trinity Nova attacks consistently. Arceus decks will typically use Arceus as an efficient attacker and early game support, and build the rest of the list based on the expected field of decks. Arceus Duraludon Umbreon uses Duraludon for its tanky attributes, and Umbreon for its aggression and type advantage. Duraludon VMAX has the Skyscraper ability, which prevents all damage done to it by Pokemon with special energy attached. This is really good against Lugia decks, especially since their counter for Duraludon, the Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, has become increasingly less popular over the past couple of months. Additionally, Duraludon VMAX's attack ignores abilities like Mimikyu's Safeguard, and effects like Hisuian Goodra VSTAR's Rolling Iron attack. Umbreon VMAX's ability is essentially a boss's orders when you evolve Umbreon VMAX, which creates devastating turns in which you can use a supporter like Judge or Iono, and also bring up one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Umbreon VMAX can also be used to hit popular Pokemon like Mew VMAX and Gardevoir EX for weakness. Umbreon V is also usable due to its mean look attack, which can trap Pokemon in the active. Arceus Giratina is quite simple. Use Trinity Nova to power up Giratina, and then use Lost Impact a couple of times. This deck plans to disrupt the opponent with Judge and Path to the Peak, so you can swing a few times with big attacks and quickly win. Arceus Goodra is not very popular in the current meta, but is essentially built the same as Arceus Giratina. Instead of Giratina VSTAR's bigger attack, Goodra offers a more defensive strategy with Rolling Iron, which is more effective against decks with lower damage outputs like Lost Zone Box and Rapid Strike Inteleon Urshifu. Arceus Pidgeot is a rogue variant of Arceus that hasn't seen any major success, but it's an idea floating around and can play a myriad of techs and strategies since Arceus and Pidgeot provide great support. This variant will typically include Charon's Care for healing Arceus VSTARs, and Poppy to move energy to alternate attackers like Radiant Greninja. Overall, Arceus decks are not very popular right now, but can still see some success. Arceus Duraludon Umbreon and Arceus Giratina have been the most mainstream Arceus decks in recent months. Gardevoir EX is an incredibly powerful Stage 2 deck. The early turns can be shaky, and games can take a long time to close out, which risks tying in best 2 out of 3. But other than that, Guardy is still a top deck in standard format. The deck is supported by Kirlia's Refinement and Gardevoir's Shining Arcana, while Gardevoir EX's Psychic Embrace allows you to flood the board with Psychic Energy. This deck is known for being tactical and adaptive due to its slower strategy involving setting up multiple evolution Pokemon, several attacking options including Cresselia, Gardevoir, and Zacian V, and its potential to stage comebacks with Iono and Reversal Energy. Gardevoir EX is a fantastic deck so long as the pilot is aware of the deck's early game fragility, overall complex decisions, and issues with time. Chien Pao Baxcalibur has been around since Paldea evolved, and its place in the meta still has yet to stabilize. Baxcalibur is used for its Super Cold ability, and from there you can either take knockouts with Chien Pao's Hail Blade, or you snipe smaller Pokemon with Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken. This deck has potential to one-hit KO anything and can be an aggressive force all game, but is susceptible to clunky starting hands due to playing combo cards that aren't good without the other half, like Baxcalibur and Rare Candy, cross-switcher pairs, and canceling Cologne, which typically needs to be paired with a pair of cross-switchers or boss's orders to turn off Manaphy's Wave Veil. There is also a Palkia VSTAR focused deck which plays Chien Pao EX. This Palkia focused variant is the only Chien Pao deck that has seen any success in the Asian circuit, with recent 10th and 12th place finishes at Champions League Yokohama 2023, a 3,000 player event. Palkia Chien Pao omits Baxcalibur in favor of more reliable damage and energy acceleration from Palkia VSTAR. Palkia VSTAR can only burst energy onto the board once per game, but that's fine if you're dishing out considerable damage every turn with Subspace Swell. This variant also bubbled out of top 8 at Worlds, piloted by NAIC 2023 champion Cyrus Davis. Miraidon EX has had an interesting journey, from being hyped as one of the best decks for the Scarlet and Violet base set format paired with Regieleki V, Regieleki VMAX, and Klefki, to reaching Fun Tier status and being considered a free win at tournaments. That is, until Sajan Park and Andrew Mahone showed the world how good the deck really could be with a proper deck list and great pilots at the World Championship stage. Miraidon Flaffy was put on the competitive radar at World Championships, and then Jesse Parker placed second at Pittsburgh Regionals with it, further cementing it as a real threat in this metagame. Miraidon EX is able to set up your board every single game with Tandem Unit, and there is a ton of good lightning cards to support it, like Electric Generator, Flaffy, Raikou V, and Raichu V. The same weekend as Jesse's second place in Pittsburgh, Miraidon EX was the winning deck over in Japan at the Champions League Yokohama. This winning list was using new cards from Pokemon 151, Zapdos EX, and Mew EX. It will be interesting moving forward to see if these become mainstay cards in Miraidon deck lists. Miraidon EX Regieleki VMAX has fallen off since its inception, but it uses Regieleki VMAX to boost your damage output, so you have a chance at one-shotting the bigger threats in the meta. Regieleki V has two useful attacks itself, as it can either hit and run into something like a Klefki, or it can reduce damage dealt to itself next turn, which can be great against low-damaging decks. This variant is not popular and has not seen any remote amount of success in quite a while, so I'm pretty confident in writing this one off and accepting Miraidon Flaffy as the Miraidon deck. Tournaments have hundreds if not thousands of players competing, and you won't always face meta decks. Some players are new to the game and some are simply there to enjoy the event, so I wanted to cover a few decks you might see just because they're new and novel. Alakazam EX is an exciting card from Scarlet and Violet 151 because it can use its dimensional hand attack from the bench. This creates a strategy of leaving disruptive Pokemon like Klefki or Mimikyu in the active, while Alakazam stays on the bench. I'm sure a few people will bring this deck to upcoming regionals, even if it's not very good. Blastoise EX actually has a lot of potential. With its already high HP, its ability makes it even bulkier and comes with a great attack. There's plenty of water support for Blastoise EX, so not only might this deck see play from Blastoise fanatics, it could actually be pretty good. The last new deck I want to inform you about is Arbok EX. Again, I don't think this is actually going to do anything big at tournaments, but it's something you could run into in early rounds especially. Arbok EX has sparked interest because it can really disrupt the opponent with discarding multiple cards from their hand every turn. When paired with Judge, Iono, or even Roxanne, this could be devastating, so knowing what your opponent is capable of when you see an Ekans on the bench could save you a game or two. To make sure I prepare you as much as possible for all of the cards and decks you might see in this metagame, let's briefly discuss a few rogue decks that have not seen much success or high popularity, but are still seen around events from time to time. Zoroark Box is a Stage 1 centric deck which uses Zoroark from Evolving Skies to transform into Stage 1 Pokemon from the discard pile. This deck is unpopular because of its bad Lost Zone matchups and its general slowness and clunkiness due to being an Evolution Toolbox deck. Watch out for their Slowbro, which is often used to win the game if you're not careful. Control decks exist in most formats, but they often look very different from year to year based on the tools and strategies available. The current control decks typically utilize Snorlax with Block to trap Pokemon in the active, Luxray V to discard important cards from the opponent's hand, Misfortune Sisters to mill the opponent's deck, and plenty of Voss's Orders to make sure there's always a suboptimal Pokemon stuck in the active position. One more rogue deck is Meowscarada EX, which is actually very close to being good, it just ends up being underwhelming most of the time. Meowscarada's main downfall is that of being a Stage 2 Pokemon, which takes extra resources and time to set up, and more deck space for the evolution cards as well. Meowscarada is kind of outclassed by Inteleon Urshifu at the time, which does the same things but better. So maybe there's a brighter future for Meowscarada EX when the Rapid Strike package isn't taking the spotlight in a future format. I think the best decks for beginners are consistent and reliable decks that have refined strategies. So let's look at some that fall into this category. Lugia VSTAR is one of the best beginner decks. Whether you choose the single strike or colorless version, that is up to you. But having a concrete goal of getting 2 Archeops onto the board turn 2 with Summoning Star every single game is good for someone who is getting the hang of how competitive decks work. Arceus Giratina is a great deck for someone who doesn't have time or experience to learn a more complicated deck. Use Starbirth turn 2 to set up, attack with Trinity Nova, and power up your Giratina, and that's half the battle right there. It also helps that Judge plus Path is very strong and will win you games on its own. Miraidon EX is pretty good for beginners since it mostly uses basic Pokemon and straightforward attacks. However, there are a good amount of attackers to choose between each turn, so this will give you more lines of play to consider than a deck like Arceus or Lugia. The last section of this video is for tech cards that you might play in your own deck or need to look out for from your opponent. Tech cards are meant to help against specific strategies, decks, or cards, and you should try to include techs that help against multiple different things. Manaphy is one of the most popular techs in today's standard format. It protects your bench against Radiant Greninja's Moonlight Shuriken, which is a very popular attack used in Lost Zone and Water decks. Manaphy also protects against Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX's G-Max Rapid Flow. Path to the Peak is used to gain advantage against decks that rely on their rulebox abilities, like Lugia VSTAR's Summoning Star, Genesect V's Fusion Strike System, Miraidon EX's Tandem Unit, and Gardevoir EX's Psychic Embrace. Lost Vacuum is a tech that is sometimes included as a counter to Path to the Peak, but is pretty diverse since it can remove a Stadium or Tool card from play. Choice Belt, Defiance Band, and Cleansing Gloves are all examples of tool cards that increase your Pokemon's damage output. These cards are commonly included in decks when they help your Pokemon deal specific amounts of damage needed against popular decks. For example, Giratina decks will sometimes use Cleansing Gloves to make Lost Impact deal 310 damage against Gardevoir EX and Mew VMAX. Mawile is a sneaky tech included for its Tempting Trap attack, which stops the defending Pokemon from retreating next turn. This attack can single-handedly win games by trapping a Pokemon with no usable attacks active. For example, if you use Tempting Trap against a Gardevoir deck on their Radiant Greninja, that Radiant Greninja won't be able to attack because Gardevoir doesn't play any water energies, and they typically don't play any switches or pennies anymore, so the Greninja would be stuck and they will eventually deck out. Lost City is a unique tech because it makes all Pokemon that are knocked out go to the Lost Zone instead of the discard pile. This is especially good against decks that want to use the same attackers over and over, like Sableye or Radiant Charizard in Lost Zone decks. And lastly, a new tech card, Mew EX. Mew EX has a great ability for drawing a few extra cards, as well as a generally usable attack. Genome hacking allows you to copy the opponent's active Pokemon's attacks, so sometimes you can use your opponent's most powerful attacks against them, like Giratina VSTAR's Lost Impact or Charizard EX's Burning Darkness. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Pokemon TCG content, as well as checking out the description below for ways to support my channel and learn more about the Pokemon trading card game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.